Our bodies come in different shapes and sizes, so doesn't it make sense that our weight loss plan should too? Noom builds a personal plan that factors in dietary restrictions, medical issues, and other personal needs so your plan works for you. One of the things I love about Noom is that it doesn't feel restrictive. Instead of focusing on what you can't eat, it helps you develop a healthier relationship with food. You can still enjoy your favorite treats in moderation, which makes it a sustainable approach that I can actually stick to. If you're looking for a personalized weight loss program that actually works, I highly recommend giving Noom a try. It's a program that's helped me achieve my goals and feel better than ever. Stay focused on what's important to you with Noom's psychology and biology-based approach. Sign up for your trial today at Noom.com. That's Noom.com. Go check out Noom today.
Okay, everyone. We're back with Cindy Bertrand Flores, who is our Deep Roots person who has been looking into all these deep DNA connections with serial killers in the Mayflower. And I just want to make a formal announcement. It's our 10th podcast. We were just going to do 10 podcasts with Cindy anyway. And so she's going to kind of go off, and she's a very busy woman. So we were very happy to have her and to donate her talents and her time for this podcast. And I'm sure, people will reach out to you if they have any questions or anything about stuff they're doing. But just want to thank you, Cindy, for joining us and sharing all your expertise and experience with us.
Sure.
So I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about what we've gone over the last 10 hours, or actually 9, this is the 10th. And just kind of like, when we first, we first met you through someone else, and someone saw your TikTok video and thought it was the fact that you were connecting Mayflower pilgrims to the serial killers of modern day was right in our wheelhouse, because, obviously we do true crime. And we do have a podcast called The Serial Killer Whisperer with Laura Brand, who's been on this podcast. So I thought it was really interesting. Like when you first made that connection with the Mayflower and the serial killers, and I think you did. I mean, you share a little bit about this story, but for our listeners, tell us again how you first came up with trying to even look for that connection. I think it had something to do with your brother.
Well, no, initially it was just a quirky gift to a friend of mine who was into serial killers. And I was like, for a Halloween gift, I was like, oh, let's see if she's related to any serial killers, because she had done her DNA and I was playing with her tree. And it turned out that she was. And the first 5 serial killers that I'd added, I think, was Charles Manson, Jeffrey Dahmer, like the big ones, John Wayne Gacy.
Mm-hmm.
I think Diane Downs might have been in the first 5. And then the name Fuller kept coming up, and that takes us to the Mayflower. And I said, what is this Fuller connection? And then I mentioned to my brother, and I started this tree years ago. I mentioned it to my brother, and he said, I wonder if all serial killers have this Fuller, because they're like, he was coming up in everybody's tree. And I was like, that's impossible. What is this? So that's what drew my attention to it, which started the serial killer family tree. And then obviously doing this podcast, the tree's gotten bigger because you guys keep asking me, hey, what about this guy? And then doing the TikTok is the same. People are like, what about that? Have you done this guy? Have you done this guy? So
it seems like it's been an endless well of people.
Yeah.
And it's just been, it's fascinating. I mean, even like, when you connected Cindy, my Cindy, to the Pilgrims. She always knew that she was a relative to the Pilgrims, but the fact that she's connected to that, the fact that Laura Brand, the criminologist, she's connected to a lot of the people, both people that she's spoken to, serial killers that she's spoken to, and then also some of the victims of these serial killers. Yeah. So it's just been kind of fascinating to it's been kind of a mind bend that you have to kind of really kind of adjust what you're thinking. But I thought it was really cool. I mean, some of the areas that we've been kind of diving into, and then we kind of just started going. It was like a fishing expedition. I was like, well, what is this and what is that? And it just, you seem to find all these people that are connected in some way,
Right.
And, I mean, obviously you do that for your business as well, for other things when people are looking for, lost relatives,
Mhm.
adopted people looking for their real life mothers and fathers.
Yeah.
And I mean, what is your success rate just on that alone? I mean, like, it has been for
I
those
have
people.
a 100%, 100% success rate for finding families for people with North American lineage. What happens sometimes, if you have a father, like let's say you're looking for your father, but his grandparents or his parents were from Greece,
Hmm.
you're not, or from somewhere else, like recent Europe, you're not going to have the matches needed because it is not common in Europe for people to do their DNA. So you won't have the matches, the trees, or the records to be able to isolate those matches, find the common relative, and work backwards. So it works great if you're Canadian, American, even Mexican. But things happen. Most people do have, if they're living here, they have like some roots here.
So it's
And
mostly North America.
it's really North America because Europeans don't do their DNA. So you really can't use genetic genealogy if there's no matches to compare to.
Why do you
You
think
know,
that is? Why do you think the Europeans don't do it?
it's illegal in some places. So Israel is, it's like they don't want you to do it. So you can get permission to do it, but it's kind of illegal. France, similarly, Germany is gone. They say it's a privacy thing. Well, in France, you think you can imagine why nobody wants to cough up paternity money.
Oh, you think that's what it is?
100% that's what it is. But Germany is cracking down. They're saying it's a privacy issue, blah, um, which is unfortunate. And the thing that really sucks is there are people who were born in China, forget it. Unfortunately, if you were adopted from China or like Romania, from an
Yeah.
orphanage in Romania, there just aren't going to, it's still worth it to do your DNA and cross your fingers and hope and pray that, that you can get an answer. But it's just not a thing. People don't do their DNA in Europe. It's not popular. Like, I think some countries won't even allow ancestry to ship kits to them. So somebody who really wants to get it done has their kit shipped to somebody else, and then they get
And
it
they
from
get
there.
it there. Yeah.
Kind of like bootlegging, ancestry DNA tests. So.
Yeah, I know they have Europe has some stricter laws, like also on surrogate parenting and mothering.
Mhm.
That's a big thing they can't do there. But I mean, DNA, I don't understand. I mean, I would think that these foreign countries, especially ones that want to, bolster their populations with people
Right.
from other countries, would want that. I just find it
Yeah.
interesting. And
Yeah.
also,
No.
I'm curious to see if they're doing the DNA, and they probably are. Law enforcement's probably doing it, and probably government's probably doing it. You just
You would
can't.
think to solve crimes, but then they would want a larger database. I mean, I have seen like in matches for people. Occasionally, I will see somebody who was like born in Germany. Germany's it's a small amount of people, or I'll see Switzerland. Maybe you see Italy a little bit, not much. Greece, very small percentage of people that will do it. But like in North America, it is incredibly common. I have, let's say, I have 4,000 matches on 23andMe. They have a smaller database where I have 70,000 on Ancestry. Ancestry has the largest database. So if you want those matches, you know what I mean?
So all
That you
right,
can.
so let's talk about those databases. You said 23andMe is what's their approximate database that they have?
I mean, I'm French Canadian, so I should have a ton of matches, but I only have 4,000 on 23andMe. So it's better number one site to do it on is ancestry.com. They have the larger database where I have 70,000 matches on Ancestry
Like you
versus
personally
4,000.
have 70,000 matches.
Yes, I have 70,000 matches.
Do they detail how many DNA samples that they have? Like, do they say it's like how many, like
Million,
millions?
billion, lots. They have
Yeah.
tons because I've got 70,000 matches alone. And remembering that it's pretty much just North Americans that are doing their DNA and they have sample like that large of a database, you don't want to miss out. So what you do when you have your DNA on Ancestry is you can then upload your raw data. You can download it for free to a few sites. So MyHeritage, FTDNA, Living DNA for free. They always try to sell you, to give. They have ways to try to trick you to
Yeah.
buy.
Upsell you. I mean, yeah, it's all about sales.
You can work around that, but you want to get those more matches without buying the kit. But 23andMe and Ancestry, you have to buy the kit to do the DNA on there to get those matches. And if you're trying to solve a mystery, you start with Ancestry. If you need more matches, you check the other sites. If you still need more, then you would spend the money to do 23andMe.
Is there going to be other DNA places that are going to pop up? I mean, just now, there's only
there are
two.
small guys, but nobody's gonna catch up to Ancestry and 23andMe. Those are the two most common. You know,
And
my
is that,
heritage.
I can't remember. Are those two companies owned are they North American owned companies?
No, I don't think so. So another example is on my heritage, I have 14,000 matches. So I actually have more matches on my heritage than 23andMe. So those are going to be your three tops. FTDNA is owned by my heritage. My heritage is owned by an Israeli company. 23andMe, there was that whole debacle lately. There was BlackRock bought it, not BlackRock, Blackstone. It's not BlackRock.
Mm-hmm.
That was 4 years ago. They bought shares, like 40 some odd percent of the shares. But it's not BlackRock, it's Blackstone. I don't know. I know that there was something to do with everybody on the board left and they were trying to take it private. I don't know who owns that one. Ancestry, everyone always says the Mormons own it. It's not true. They don't. What they do own is Family Search.
Yeah.
FamilySearch.org. They own that. And they have you can get your records for free on there. But as far as building your family tree, they believe in one tree, but that tree is plagued with errors.
Yeah.
But if you do your own tree, I like the Ancestry Tree Builder. I pay for the subscriptions. That's the thing. That's where it costs money. The subscriptions to get the records that you can, if you want to view the records, that's why it's better to hire a genetic genealogist to just quickly get in there and do it for you. So you might be paying upfront initially, but it can take you 10 years to try to solve something if you do it yourself, if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah. And you seem like you can do it very quick. I mean, the stuff that you pull out all the time. So if anybody's interested in doing this, you should definitely give her a call or reach out to her. Yeah, no, I mean, I find it interesting that you say that was it Ancestry is an Israeli owned company?
No, my heritage is my heritage and FTDNA, it's the same company. It's owned by an Israeli company, which is funny because I think somebody messaged them or I did. They're not happy that it's illegal. They say that it's to protect people from finding out they're related. Because that's like a no-no in their religion, in the Jewish religion. But not everybody who lives in Israel is Jewish.
Exactly.
So they say you can get permission to do your DNA, but for the most part, it's basically illegal.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, especially since the Jewish people are constantly, they want to connect with their others.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in this.
And that would give more validity to like the J haplogroups and a better study of where that actual 12 tribes of Israel DNA is located, like locked in,
Yeah.
So
that's crazy. It's all crazy. I mean, so on this journey, was there any kind of big surprises for you when because we would throw like all these kind of questions for you and you just kind of digested all of them and came up with answers and really, what was some of the biggest surprises when?
I think it was probably the last episode was interesting. That you made a good point about how the males and the female killers have completely different MOs. They have they do things differently, where the women are like the caretaker types, the nurses, and their killings are for people that are, elderly or whatever, versus we know how the guys approach it, right?
Yeah.
And so being that we don't follow serial killers, that's actually a very interesting observation. So
yeah, and I asked Laura about that on our podcast last week. Yeah, and she said that it's super, super common that nurses, it's like the angel of death, kind of, like they're just, and in some way in their mind, it starts off as they're trying to alleviate pain and suffering, but then it escalates into something else when they do it more and more times. Mm-hmm. And then as far as women killing their babies and their children, that's like we talked about, infanticide. So it's like, and it's usually as a result of someone else that's in their life that doesn't want anything to do with their children. Mm-hmm. Like the Susan Smith story.
And that's going to come with the, sins of the father thing, where you're raised most likely in a house. You came from a broken home. You're chasing love. You find love. You have babies and he doesn't want you anymore. And so now well, I gave you these kids and you still don't love me. Well, I want to love this next person to love me. I'm going to get rid of these kids. So that's part of the mental demons that travel in the.
Yeah, the Casey Anthony, the Susan Smith, so
And
it's
then there's the ones who kill their mothers, like Gypsy Rose. But the girl that we're going to talk about today, Tofield, what's her name? It starts
it's
with a T.
Torlina Fields.
I can never remember her name.
Torlina Fields, and this is fairly recent.
Just
Um,
like the other day.
yeah, I mean, she's a Kentucky woman who murdered and dismembered her, or unalived and dismembered her mother's body.
And
And
then cooked her body parts.
excuse me.
She cooked her body parts.
Oh, I didn't read that far
Oh,
down.
yeah.
I stopped at dismembered. I mean, that's horrible. That's
She
horrible.
cooked
But
her body parts. Some were wrapped in a mattress. There were drag marks on the porch and in the grass. And so, of course, she's a Mayflower descendant. That's
yeah,
how
she's a Mayflower descendand,
she's
and
amazing.
she's what you said to me. She's related to Diane Downs.
And this one was a mindfuck for me. I don't know if I can swear on this podcast.
Yeah, you
but anyway,
can. You can swear.
was she's Kevin Spacey's fourth cousin once removed.
This woman,
She is
Torlanina,
fourth
fourth
cousin.
cousin.
That's really close. I don't know. That might be the closest one. There's another one. I think it's John Wayne Gacy, and I can't remember one of the older killers who are like second cousins, however many times removed. But as far as like modern day, and then there's a fifth cousin one, which is between the Carol Bundy, is her name. She was part of the Freeway Sunset Strip Killers.
Oh, yeah. Bundy, yeah.
They're fifth cousins.
Carol Bundy.
So this got fourth and once removed is actually closer than those. So I was like, oh, that's really close.
Yeah, Kevin Spacey. Obviously, he's a
Actually.
Mayflower descendant, and he's related to. Is he related to a president too?
He's related to Joe Biden.
Joe Biden. That's what it was. I knew it was one of them.
Is he? Yeah. He's not on the Fuller line, isn't he?
So that would make Joe Biden. Is Joe Biden on the Fuller line too?
No.
No. So it's just that's where it splits off.
Yeah, it's just you can be related to people and not be related to other ones. People say, "Oh, if I'm related to that person, does that mean I'm related to all these?" No, it just depends on which ancestor you share.
Yeah.
But the fact that she was related to Kevin Spacey, that was that closely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's on the Mayflower descendant. He's on the cook line, and then she cooked her mother.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I just that's.
But also was that she is. So she's on the Doty line on the Mayflower. So she's related to Douglas Clark. And then Joseph James D'Angelo, Israel Keys.
So she's related to Clark. Didn't you said she's also related to Bundy, Carol Bundy?
She's no, that was two different things. So I was like, she's related to Kevin Spacey. I'm saying the other, but that was close. Fourth cousin once removed.
Oh yeah. She was the next
Bundy
closest person to that. I get it now.
is fifth cousins to somebody else. I was just saying as far as being close.
Mm-hmm.
But she's related to Joseph James D'Angelo, Israel Keys, Mark Scott Thornton, Eugene Barrett, Casey Anthony, and Jeffrey Dahmer.
Wow.
So as cooking people. We got a couple cookers right there.
Yeah. No, that's, and she wasn't. I mean, she's young. She's not that old.
Is she 35, I think?
Yeah,
she's her father was 18 years older than her mother. Oh, I found that peculiar.
Mm-hmm.
Her mother's second marriage, I saw. That one was interesting. Her dad was a vet, military veteran. He fought in the Korea War, I believe. So I thought that was interesting. They had a bunch of kids, and her mom was already older when she had her, and they got married. And she was married. She had her a few years after she got married, so she was having like a bunch of kids with this guy.
Yeah,
that's
crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That's nuts. So, all right, so that was that, and then we also looked up another guy who I'm familiar with, Elmer Henley, and people who aren't familiar with him, he was part of a serial killing kind of trio in their run was like from 72 to 73. He hooked up with this older guy, Dean Correll, and David Brooks, and David Brooks was a younger guy, and this guy was younger too. And Dean Correll would have them bring young teenagers to hang out and party and smoke weed, and then they would have sex with these young boys, and then they started killing them, at the order of them, just because they didn't, because they didn't want the news to get out. So tell me a little about Elmer Henley.
So Elmer Henley is on the Shakespeare line. He's related to Shakespeare. So that was fun on the web line. And with that, you get Gypsy Rose, Lauren Douglas Thomas, Edmund Kemper is on that line, Henry Lee Lucas. They're on the web line.
Yeah.
So just that Shakespeare connection is interesting. But he's on the Nap line. He's also got Mayflower, but on the Nap line, he's related to Joseph James D'Angelo, Eileen Warnos,
Yep.
Mark Scott Thornton again, Dana Ewell, Mary Beth Rowe. So he's double related to Mary Beth Rowe because he's related to her on that same Mayflower line as well. We talked about her in the woman one, probably
Yeah,
the last
yeah, I remember her. Yeah.
the one with the 9 children that she killed
Oh,
over
that's
14.
no. Was that Elizabeth? Was that Mary Beth Rose or Tuning?
Yeah, that her last name is Tinning, but her maiden name is Rose. Sorry,
Got it. Got it. That's why
Mary
she's
Beth
got
Rose
like 3
Tinning.
names. That's why I was confused.
Yeah, Timothy Burkhart, Dylan Bennett Klebold. So that's
Yeah,
the
the Columbine guys.
Columbine. Hayden and Bradfield Clark, so some cannibals there. Ethan Crumbly, school shooter, and then
Yep.
William Suff, and then possibly Gypsy Rose again, because again that NAP line I still have to find the records.
Yeah.
And then he happens to
Well,
be on
that's
the
interesting
Hopkins
because
line.
because William Suff was originally from Texas,
Yeah,
so that might be the connection there.
the connection's further down, but the fact that a lot of people who settled in Massachusetts and Connecticut ended up making their way south
Mm-hmm.
and settling places like Texas and Kentucky and things like that is interesting. And most interestingly is North Carolina, because as I mentioned in a previous episode, I would expect that North Carolina would have been filled with people from Virginia, like you just move over and you populate, but they
They
came from
don't.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
They came.
there's no. If they would bypass Virginia and go straight to North Carolina.
It's very interesting. And then his Mayflower connection is he's on the Hopkins line, so he descends from Stephen Hopkins, of which we get Jeffrey Dahmer, so he's related to Jeffrey Dahmer, John Wayne Gacy, because there's some big ones, Joseph James D'Angelo again, Douglas Clark, David Hendricks, Stephen Avery, Brendan Dassey, and then Mary Beth Rowe again.
Wow.
Yeah, so lots of killer cousins.
Yeah.
So it doesn't surprise me that these people have the demons in them. You still have to come into agreement with the demons in order to commit the act. But the fact that the demons are already there present, it's easier for them to manipulate you and get you to kind of agree and commit the act. And that's their goal. They want to destroy humans because Satan hates humans. He hates God's creation. They're very angry at humans. So they want to take it out on them with, brutality, immoral sexual acts like of the grossest kind, cannibalism, like at some point it's the demons that have taken over. Now that girl, what's her name?
Torellini.
Yeah, she.
Torellina.
I saw something yesterday that said she was playing with witchcraft prior
Interesting.
to. So she's fully invoking the demons. She had blood all over her, cooking her mother's body parts. Like, you can tell when these people are like in the thralls of these, playing in the blood. Like she's covered in blood and like.
Did she have any history of mental illness before that, or?
I don't know. I don't follow serial killers. I didn't look into it. I just built the tree and I'm like, interesting.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to find out more about her. But it's funny how this. I mean, when I pulled it up, there was only a couple news articles about this woman. There wasn't There wasn't that many. I mean,
it's just happened. I've heard about it.
I know, but this is like, it's interesting how they pick and choose what they want to show you. This is pretty horrific.
The one guy who did the Donald Trump attempt, and he did kill somebody in the crowd.
Yes.
With the ear. He had a Wikipedia page up the next day, or even that day. There was already a Wikipedia page on him. This girl don't have no Wikipedia page. Plenty of killers have no Wikipedia pages. This is disgusting what this girl did. She didn't have a Wikipedia page, so
Well,
kind of got
I mean, it's like she killed her mother, who no one knew who her mother was, and this guy tried to kill
I
the
mean, I
most
suppose,
the
but
most famous person in the world right now. Is good or bad. I mean, he's definitely, everybody knows who Trump is.
right.
So
But I mean, there are plenty of killers who it's really hard to find anything on, and and they've committed the most heinous acts, and yet there are other killers who've done less, and they got Wikipedia pages, and they were in the news, and it was
that
famous.
that has been the enlightening part of dealing with this subject matter. Obviously, I didn't have like the only real, and you can classify him as a serial killer, but I met a few of them behind bars when I was doing a series called Lockup
Mhm.
years ago. Like I got to interview Charles Manson, was like, right up against his glass interviewing him on there. And then another guy went, Juan Corona, who was a big mass killer. He would kill a lot of immigrants coming over the border. And we're talking like tons. And, but, other than that, I didn't really know a lot about him. And then since working with Laura Brand, because she talks to hundreds of them, I didn't
Mhm.
know any of these people. I didn't know who William Suff was.
Right.
I didn't know
Me
who.
neither until you told me to look into him.
I know, and now it's
Yeah.
just like all I do is hear his name.
Mhm.
I mean, they just that consciousness. So it's been an education in evil.
Yeah.
And it really is. And you try to figure out what really makes these people tick. Like
Mhm.
stuff. I mean, the one thing. Oh, and then Gary Ridgway. Gary Ridgway was my first kind of introduction to when his niece worked for me and told me that, and then we did a documentary on their family and stuff like that. But that guy, his older brother, who couldn't have been the nicer guy. The one who we interviewed on the show and he participated in, and his wife and their family, they seemed like a very normal family.
Mhm.
We had access to all their home movies and Christmas morning. I mean, they couldn't have looked more normal. And and Gary Ridgway, I mean, he just looks, he doesn't look like the face of evil. I mean,
Mhm.
now he does because what he's done. But when
Mhm.
you see all these old pictures of him, he's kind of an average guy. He didn't really have anything to do. In general, I mean, he didn't have any. The biggest thing in him, he spent some time in Vietnam,
Mhm.
but I don't know how much combat he had experience. But it just didn't. It's so strange, and like even this Elmer Henley, he doesn't look like. They don't look
He
like the
looks like he's
monsters that
old.
they're doing this.
Right. The other thing, so that guy was 17, Elmer Henley, so I read. But some of these killers, serial killers or regular killers, are dabbling in the dark arts on the side just for fun or whatever. Don't open those portals because then the demons can jump in and possess you. Like they have a legal right to possess you when you're sitting there playing with witchcraft and opening portals. Don't do it. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? So while demons can travel through the bloodline, there's another way that they can get in. And if you're, you know, playing with witchcraft, they have a legal right. They
I
can possess.
mean, I still can't believe that they sell like Ouija boards at Walmart's. You
Yeah, it's
know,
sick.
every time
Yeah.
I go into someone's house and you see all their game boxes and see a Ouija board, and I'm like, what? Why would you have that in your house? I mean, I know, I mean, a lot of people may think I'm crazy, but that's
You
that's
don't want that.
no. I mean, that's like you said, that's opening up a door to something,
Yes.
of
Right.
consciousness. I mean, we have
Yeah.
no idea what our consciousness is,
Mhm.
and we don't know what it's connected to, and we don't know, we do know that, like certain things, like when you meditate and you pray, you most likely feel better. Most people feel better. So I would think if you're doing the opposite of that and you're doing something to kind of evoke, you know, some demons and evil, that your consciousness is going to do that,
Yeah.
you know? So
hmm
it's
Demons
bizarre.
find their way in. They can jump into objects. So you can bring them in your house. Like you go and collect trash or whatever, like, free stuff on the side of the road. You don't know if that thing's got a demon attached to it and you're going to bring it into your home, you can bring that stuff into your home. And it
Yeah,
causes
no, I used to always say that because I used to do this one show. It was called The Collector Inspector years ago, and we'd go into people's homes and they'd have like antiques and stuff like that. I'm not a big fan of antiques. There's just something about it. Every time I go in there, yeah, I feel like there's some
yeah,
sorrow going on in there.
that too, and an energy. And it's very true. The energy that we put out, you put that energy onto something. So if there's a lot of negative energy, demons feed on that. That's what they feed on. So for instance, 9/11, I went to New York at one point after it had been torn down and they dug out a hole, and I was on the subway going past that area on the subway. It was like blocked off. You could see the light. And you could feel the negative energy. You imagine how many people have sorrowed over that spot, that sadness, that hate, that depression, whatever. It all goes in there. And that's a feeding ground for demons.
Yeah.
So, you know, like you
It's
could
still
feel
there, even though they've rebuilt the tower, that the big pit in there. And
yeah,
then, if anybody's ever gone to the museum that's underneath it, it's pretty because they have big chunks of the building and old
oh, wow.
firefighter. I mean, it's like you do feel that, you know. And then there was also on the other side of the river. I was living in New Jersey at the time. This is like 5-6 years ago, and they had two columns from the girders from the World Trade Center that they used as they look like two forks, and they sit and they just face the area where the Twin Towers are, and they just like statues. They're like 50 feet tall,
No,
these giant things. And like every time I was around, I would jog past there, everything, and you definitely feel something there. And the same way, a friend of mine just went to Normandy, went to the beaches of Normandy, and
mm-hmm.
same thing. They said it was beautiful, but you could definitely feel heavy energy in the
Mm-hmm.
same way, and when I grew up in the northwestern New Jersey, where George Washington's headquarters was. There was a lot of battles in that area and stuff like that. And we'd go. There was a place called Jockey Hollow. And some of the battlefields. Every time I went there, you can almost smell the ghosts. You can
Yeah.
smell the energy. You can feel it. Even when I was like a kid, I used to go down there. We used to go to field trips there, and you feel it.
Yeah.
You don't know what it is, but it makes you uncomfortable. I mean, anybody who's like even the least amount of empathetic or have intuition is going to feel
Mm-hmm.
it right away.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
I think that's why they put obelisks all over the U.S. and England. So the U.S. and England having the highest amount of serial killers, they also have the most obelisks. They're drawing, and these are portals that are drawing in demonic energy. So it's their connection between the other realm. That's what they believed in Egypt, and they didn't believe it for nothing. So it's how they communicate.
yeah,
And
that
so
was the
they
one.
harm.
That was the one thing we really couldn't get a straight answer from some of the professors and scholars and the authors that we read. That they wouldn't, no one would kind of jump to the point where this is evil. This
Yeah,
is evil energy. I don't know why people have such a disconnect from that. For
yeah,
thousands of years, we've kind of, people believed in evil energy, probably
mhm,
because they couldn't measure it with any sort of scientific type thing. And then we
right.
get to the point where we can kind of, we know too much, and if we can't taste it or test
Mhm.
it, you know, but there's a lot of things out there you can't do that, and I think more
Can't
and more
see the
people.
supernatural world. It's right here. It's
Exactly.
outside the ether. It exists all around us. There's a constant battle going on over your head between good and evil, and yet you can't see it. You can feel the energy. You can, you can sense demonic attacks. You
You can't
can,
see what's going on right now. This communication we have is flying through the air. You can't see it,
yeah, but it's
but
still happening.
it's
Mhm.
happening. You know,
Yeah, exactly. But it's true.
that's crazy.
Hmm.
That's crazy. What anything else that kind of has stood out to you? Were you like? Let's talk about the people that we've had on here. I mean, the authors and the pilgrims and stuff like that. I mean, did you? Was there anything that kind of surprised you, or did you learn something that you didn't know before? Excuse me.
I did not. Well, the one lady who mentioned that there was the Indian War, and then everybody hates the white man because there was a war against the Indians. That is actually, but it didn't happen until 40 years after, right? Because at this point, they've populated with more people. So
Hmm.
it actually wasn't the Pilgrims, it wasn't the Mayflower people who caused that, because they'd already been long since dead. Before 40 years later, they came over, they were already like 30, 40 years old, some of them. Um, but what's interesting is my whole thought around what happened with the Mayflowers. Like, I think that there was some Masonic influence, pre-Masonic orders, it's still a Masonic order. Um, that some of like the bigger wigs, also involving the company, which is the merchant adventurers.
Hmm.
I think that was part of the reason that they came over. I think sacrifices and cannibalism happened that first winter. There was no reason for half of them to die. So there's only 22 families left out of the 102 passengers that
Hmm.
came over.
Yep.
That didn't happen to anybody else, you know. A lot of people have tried to settle, but that's a lot of people to die in the first winter
Yeah.
and say, "Oh, they died of the sickness." The sickness because you ate humans. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Whatever. Because the Indians were helpful. They were teaching them to hunt and fish. So that was something that I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." The Indians were helping them. There's no way half of them died. The Indians had herbal remedies. They're not going to die of the sickness. Indians got sick too, but they know how to help,
Yeah.
right? They
Yeah.
were helping. So that leads me to believe more that they were doing they were cannibalizing, they were sacrificing, things that evil people do.
Yeah.
So, especially if the Indians were there helping. There was already a settlement, there were buildings there. So it's not like they had to build from scratch. They just
No.
had to
Yeah.
move. So why half of them die? There's no
Exactly.
reason.
Yeah. I
Because
mean, Columbus was there before them.
right. Well, no, I don't think Columbus ever made it to. He landed in like Dominican area.
No, I know, but
But
he had, he dealt with Indians, so it's not
right,
like it wasn't the first
they,
group to
they
see Indians,
were
Native
trading
American.
furs and fish and all that for
Yeah.
hundreds of years before the settlers settled,
Yep.
and they were a guest and everything. But the fact that half of them died on the Mayflower, there was no reason for it, which means it's even more nefarious. Like, I think, they were supposed to land in Virginia, and all of a sudden they didn't. They ended up in Massachusetts, where there was already a settlement. They were grave robbing, so there's that element. So you're digging up corpses.
Why were they grave robbing?
That was what the one lady said, that they were. And I'd heard that before.
I
Digging
can't
up the
remember that.
native graves and the European graves. I don't. Right. So that's a good question. Why? What did you
Unless
mean?
unless they were buried with items that were valuable and they wanted to take them.
Well,
That's usually
that's
what grave robbers would do.
right. And so if you're a Mayflower passenger, and so that might have also caused some conflict. People are like, no, what are you doing? Don't do that. And then they kill them over it. You know what I mean? And while
Hmm.
they're at it, the body, hey, there's meat for you. I also think that there might be some sort of tie to Oak Island. Part of a reason that the Mayflower came over, because if you look at a map, it's a straight shot to Oak Island from where they landed. They first landed in the bay, in a bay area, and then they made their way over to where they settled in Salem, or not Salem, Plymouth.
Plymouth, yeah, Plymouth Rock.
So I do think that why would the company fork over all this dough, and then they say they lent it to them? You're just gonna lend the money to a bunch of, yet they were the ones who chose who went. The merchant adventurers hand selected the people that
I
they would
know
have.
it was a
Like,
business
it was
venture.
them who borrowed the money, and then they had to get permission from the king. Too fishy. Too fishy. I
Yeah,
think there's something to do with the Masons and the treasure at Oak Island, especially if you're grave robbing. Y'all greedy, trying to get your hands on anything worth anything, so that you can trade and barter and whatever. I don't know, but something nefarious
well,
happened on
yeah,
the Mayflower.
also you have that whole evil totem element if you're grave robbing
Right.
and you're
True.
taking someone off someone's
Mm-hmm.
spirit. It's a desecration.
Yeah.
It's a desecration. So that whatever it is that they're taking off there, whether it's like a necklace, jewelry, or
Mhm.
watch, or that to me is ill got. It's got blood on it.
Well, and we're talking about like demons jumping into things. You just grab somebody's shit. What are you
Exactly.
doing? You know what I mean? Like, So let's say it was a European, and that European was a bad dude,
Yeah.
right? And like possessed, and those demons jumped into that item, and you went and grave robbed and got that item. Guess what you got in your hands?
Yeah.
You got the demon, and that demon can jump into you at any time because that's what they do.
Yeah.
So causing you to go crazy or worse, you know. So maybe that's how they got the Wendigo.
The
they,
Wendigo. Yeah.
they dug that shit right up, right?
Yeah. I mean, going back to like, that whole feeling of evil is, when recently in February, Cindy and I went up and met Laura Brand up at San Quentin. And we went in. Actually, Cindy couldn't go in for some reason because she was wearing jeans and they wouldn't allow her in with jeans because a lot of the inmates wear denim. So you can't go in there with denim. So, just when you go through those Sally ports, and especially something like San Quentin, which has been around for a long time, there's definitely that as soon as you get through those Sally port doors and then they locked us in a cage with, David Carpenter for 3 hours. And right next to us is like Chester Turner, who's another serial killer. He's like gigantic man. He's built like a Coke machine and they're all having this and you could just the energy is so and there's like no airflow in there. So it's just like, the windows don't really open and it's just all institutional air and fluorescent lights and you can just smell the grime and and all that. But it just definitely, you feel the energy is so heavy.
I wonder how, I'd be curious to know how far the nearest obelisk is from every prison. Be very interested because all that demonic energy is right there. I'm going to look into this after just because I'm
Yeah.
curious.
And its irony is that, right now is that, Gavin Newsom's turning it into a rehabilitation center. And I don't know how you do that, I just don't know how you do it.
The demons are feeding each other. I don't know why you'd put them all into one, like I get their idea of prison because it's cheaper to just put them all together. But you know what happens when you, um, let's say you plant a bunch of apple trees next to each other. There's a reason that God put them where He did. When
Yeah.
you plant them all together, they
They
get
feed
bugs,
off each other. They feed off each other.
and they get bugs, and then you have to spray because they're doing it for their convenience, but it makes it 1,000 times worse, and it's worse for everybody. So if you look at prisoners like apple trees, they shouldn't put them all together.
Yeah. Well, bad apples.
Yeah, that too.
Really bad crab apples.
Yeah.
It's
And
crazy.
a lot of
So,
really, I don't even want to know, but a lot of really evil, bad stuff happens in prison too. So
yeah. So what what have you learned during this journey? I mean, because like you weren't, like I said, it started out as just a query from your friend for Halloween. We're coming up on Halloween again.
yeah.
So, so what have you learned from this whole process?
That evil very much exists, and the Bible is 100% true. Everything has led me back to that. Like, oh damn! And you crack open the Bible, like, oh, it says that. It says that. Oh, you know what I mean? Like, it all lines up. It's mind blowing. I know that the Bible is true. I've always known, but then doing this killer tree, the fact that that's what it led me to, I was like, oh, that's a little mind blowing. Honestly, there's so many realizations that can be had just by doing a bunch of serial killers in one tree, finding the patterns that they have, and the like handful of people that they all descend from. Because there's really not that many ancestors. Some have like, well, for 20 something, 15
Mm-hmm.
something killers. That's a lot of killers.
It is a
These
lot.
are vile, super evil. And I haven't scratched the surface. Barely had done any killers. You look at celebrity family trees, people do celebrities, artists, all these people that are notable people. They have their lineage online. It's already done for them. So you can go pull up a next famous kin website
Yep.
and see how many descend from this Mayflower passenger. But killers, I mean, I barely have any, like just a fraction. Can you imagine how many are actually descended from these people? It's obscene. The amount is,
Yeah.
and that's not something that people do. Like big ones, maybe Jeffrey Dahmer, but not John Wayne Gacy, surprisingly. So,
Well,
and
the other thing too is like, this evil has come up again. The worshiping evil's come again with this whole P. Diddy thing, and the Clive Davis thing. I'd be curious to see what Clive Davis's tree looks like.
I did
Because
look at Diddy's. He has royal descent. He has some white lines. He's related to all the presidents. He's not.
Diddy is?
Yeah, yeah. He's not related to any of the killers. He has no killer ties. So that indicates to me that he didn't do it himself, but he'd be more like you do it. You know what I mean? Like hired people, got people to do the
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah, he delegated everything.
Right. So that's just by looking at his tree, I would say he didn't do any physical killing himself or anything like that.
Well,
Because that's coming up too, like Michael Jackson, that girl with she was on Clueless. I don't remember her name.
yeah, Alicia Silverstone.
No, the girl that died. That one with
The girl. I forget her name. Yeah.
her and her husband later, a few
Yes.
months after.
Yes, they died.
Yeah. Brittany Murphy.
Brittany Murphy. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah. Well, they're saying that something about baby oil can cause pneumonia or something, but they're saying she went to Diddy parties. They're saying,
Well, they're saying that wasn't just baby oil. There was stuff
oh yeah, I heard.
inside. There was stuff inside the baby oil. Some
Yeah.
sort of agent
Gateway
that,
drug.
like, when they rub it on their skin, it absorbs and it paralyzes the person.
Yep.
Like they just kind of their muscles become so
Well,
relaxed.
the date rape drug, as far as I know, they pass out, they knock out.
Rohypnol.
Yeah, that. So, but that doesn't surprise me. Now they're going to let out the Menendez brothers. They're saying that they're going to.
Yeah, well, that's a whole nother thing. I mean, I think that's a whole nother thing. I think I've actually talked to Lyle while he's in prison, and I tell you, the guy couldn't have been more articulate and bright and smart, and he wasn't even talking on his behalf. He was actually, it was because of, there was this guy, African American guy that was in prison that was getting out soon, that had a thriving rap career before he got arrested and thrown in prison. And he had Lyle like basically vouching for him on what he was like, and we were trying to develop something for a documentary about him. But I think I think that's a different situation. I think they were raised with evil. I mean, the father, believe it or not, record industry person.
That's what I'm saying. Like
Connection to Clive Davis and all those guys, and was it Tommy Mottola? He's another one that's I'm surprised things are slowly coming up about him.
Well, I heard that the mother too of the Menendez was abusing them as well. And that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Like now they're more than likely they're going to be released, and they've already been in there with 30 some
They've
years.
spent their time. They've spent their time.
Yes, they have the evil in them 100%. But the fact of the matter is, that's where the evil came from, and they wanted to end it. That guy wasn't just raping and molesting them; he was doing it to the Menudos and to whoever else. Look at Diddy, same thing, but probably a lot worse. So, were they doing people a favor? Probably.
Yeah.
But obviously, they want that information out there to bury Hollywood, because if it would have come out then, well, they didn't believe them. And now
that when you hear about what's going on right now, and the way, because they were in there for, like, I think they've been there for 36 years. I think that's how long, at least 30 years.
37.
But but now it kind of, it makes sense.
Yeah,
it does. Have that music connection and stuff like that.
Yeah, but only because it's now coming out because of Diddy. And then look at Epstein. It didn't come out when Epstein, but now that Diddy and Clive Davis and all these connections are being made, people are like, oh, maybe the Menendez brothers weren't lying and didn't do it for their parents' money. Why would they? The parents were coughing up the dough anyway, paying for their stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the motive. It doesn't make sense. I mean, it sounded like, and it's not like I think they knew they weren't going to get away with it. I think they knew they were going to get caught. So it's like they just couldn't handle it anymore.
That's the thing. Let's end them and find, if we go to prison, at least we're not getting. And I heard they were protected in prison, like, from being raped in prison. Like they were very protected.
Oh, because they were rape victims.
Because so.
Well, I know. I mean, you never know how that goes.
Right.
Depending upon, but they were high-profile people. So,
Yep.
I know they don't like child rapists in prison.
Right.
They don't like people who, rape and abuse women. They find them, and they kind of, it's a crazy world in there. They, the correctional officers don't control that area. The inmates control it all. Just keep them inside.
Yeah.
to whole, like Laura's told me so many things about how these serial killers talk about the other, like they exclude people that are not in their group that they feel is weird. Like Michael Gargiulo is someone that they didn't like in Death Row. The one was attached to the Ashton Kutcher girlfriend who he killed.
Oh, okay.
And so they didn't like him. They used to, I forget what was the nickname they used to give him. They used to call him the Weirdo.
Oh, wow.
Imagine being dubbed the Weirdo in Death Row by a bunch of other
wow.
serial killers.
Yeah.
That's got to be the moniker you can't shake.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've been playing some crazy tapes of him this week. But all right, well, listen. I think, like I said before, we really appreciate. I mean, I honestly didn't think we were going to get this much material out of this to begin with, but we went down the rabbit hole, and we appreciate all the work you've done on this. And if anybody needs any kind of genealogy work done, please look up Cindy Bertram Flores. You can find her. You can just Google her, and she's the shit. She knows what she's doing, and let me just tell you. I mean, a lot of times our everyone's schedules are so hectic. You know, a lot of times it's usually the day before or the morning before, and we're like, oh, we're going to talk about, and then we start talking a little bit about it, and they go, oh, let's talk about women serial killers. You know, boom, 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 boom. You know, in like 2 hours, you have like this gigantic list of connections. So she's pretty amazing getting all this stuff done. So, but appreciate you, Cindy. Wish you well. And if anytime you want to come back on and talk with us, that'd be great.
Awesome.
All righty. You take care.
All right. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.